The year 1971 saw one of the most horrific genocides in modern history, as millions of Bengalis were killed, raped, and displaced by the Pakistani military and its collaborators in what was then East Pakistan. The genocide was the culmination of long-standing political and economic discrimination against the Bengali population by the West Pakistani elite, who viewed them as culturally and ethnically inferior. The Bengalis, who constituted the majority of the population and produced most of the country's exports, demanded greater autonomy and democracy from the central government, which responded with brutal repression and violence. Let's take a step back and give you a little background on the events leading up to this situation. During the partition of British India in 1947, the territory that now forms Pakistan was divided into two regions, East Pakistan and West Pakistan. These regions were separated by more than 1,000 miles of Indian territory and had little in common in terms of culture, language, and ethnicity. East Pakistan was predominantly Bengali, while West Pakistan was composed of various ethnic groups, such as Punjabis, Sindhis, Balochis, and Pashtun. The political and economic power was concentrated in West Pakistan, which dominated the central government and the military. East Pakistan, despite being more populous and producing most of the country's exports, was neglected and exploited by the West Pakistani elite. This led to widespread resentment and discontent among the Bengalis, who demanded greater autonomy and democracy from the central government. In December 1970, General Yahya Khan, the president of Pakistan, opted to conduct elections in an attempt to alleviate political tensions. The objective was to dissuade separatist forces from seeking increased autonomy in East Pakistan. These elections, held just once before the independence of Bangladesh, marked a pivotal moment. The electoral competition centered on two social democratic parties, the Awami League, led by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in East Pakistan, and the Pakistan People's Party, headed by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in West Pakistan. The Awami League achieved a resounding victory, securing 167 out of 169 seats in East Pakistan and obtaining a majority in the National Assembly. Despite the clear outcome, General Yahya Khan and the Pakistan People's Party rejected the results, refusing to transfer power to the Awami League. This refusal sparked a political crisis, eventually escalating into a civil war that culminated in the breakup of Pakistan and the emergence of Bangladesh. So back to our story in 1971. The East Pakistan crisis reached a boiling point in March 1971 when the Pakistani army launched Operation Searchlight, a systematic campaign of terror and extermination against the Bengali civilians, especially the Hindu minority, who were seen as pro-Indian and anti-Islamic. The operation triggered a mass uprising and a declaration of independence by the Bengali nationalist leader Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who formed the Provisional Government of Bangladesh with the support of the Mukti Bahini, a guerrilla force of freedom fighters. The Bangladesh Liberation War, as it came to be known, soon became a global issue, as it involved the interests and interventions of the major powers of the Cold War era. India, which shared a long border and cultural affinity with East Pakistan, was sympathetic to the Bengali cause and provided refuge, humanitarian aid, and military training to the Mukti Bahini. The Soviet Union, which had a treaty of friendship and cooperation with India, also backed the Bengali struggle and vetoed any UN resolution that favored Pakistan. On the other hand, the United States and China, which were rivals of the Soviet Union and India, supported Pakistan and its military regime led by General Yahya Khan. The U.S. saw Pakistan as a key ally in the region and a conduit for its secret diplomatic outreach to China. It was initiated by Henry Kissinger, the National Security Advisor and later the Secretary of State under President Richard Nixon. Kissinger and Nixon disregarded the human rights abuses and atrocities committed by the Pakistani army and its local collaborators, such as the Razakars, al-Badr, and al-Shams, who were mostly members of the Islamist party Jamaat-e-Islami. They also tried to pressure India to refrain from intervening in the conflict, fearing a wider war and a Soviet expansion. On April 6, 1971, Archer Blood, the U.S. Consul General in Dhaka, East Pakistan, sent an important cable to Washington, D.C. It was a strong protest against the atrocities committed by the Pakistani military during the Bangladesh Liberation War, which resulted in the genocide of millions of Bengalis. The cable was signed by 20 other U.S. diplomats and staff, and it was seen as an act of dissent against the Nixon administration, which supported Pakistan and ignored human rights violations. The cable stated,
"Our government has failed to denounce the suppression of democracy. Our government has failed to denounce atrocities. Our government has evidenced what many will consider moral bankruptcy."
The telegram had a significant impact on U.S. public opinion, as it was leaked to the media and caused outrage among the American people, who demanded an end to the U.S. support for Pakistan. However, the telegram also angered the Nixon administration, especially President Nixon and National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger, who viewed Blood and his colleagues as disloyal and insubordinate. The aftermath of the telegram was that Blood and most of the signatories were either recalled or reassigned to other posts, effectively ending their careers in the Foreign Service. The Blood telegram is now regarded as a historic document and a courageous act of moral dissent by historians and scholars. Blood himself was honored by the Bangladeshi government and people as a friend and hero of their nation. A month before India intervened in the Bangladesh Liberation War, Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India, had met and held discussions with Henry Kissinger and U.S. President Richard Nixon. According to transcripts of conversations between Nixon and Kissinger post that meeting, disparaging remarks were made about India and its leadership. In the aftermath of the meeting, Nixon and Kissinger had reportedly called the Indian Prime Minister a bitch, with Kissinger accusing Indira of starting a war and referring to Indians as bastards and the most aggressive people around. In September 2020, the New York Times carried an opinion piece based on the then newly declassified trove of White House tapes that provided startling evidence of the bigotry voiced by then-President Richard Nixon and Kissinger.
All unprejudiced persons objectively surveying the grim events in Bangladesh since March 25 have recognized the revolt of 75 million people. A people who were forced to the conclusion that neither their life nor their liberty, to say nothing of the possibility of the pursuit of happiness, was available to them.
When the efforts to stop the genocide with diplomacy failed, India decided to intervene militarily in December 1971. After Pakistan launched a preemptive strike on its airfields, the Indian Army, along with the Mukti Bahini, quickly overran the Pakistani forces, who were outnumbered and demoralized. On December 16, 1971, the Pakistani army surrendered in Dhaka, the capital of East Pakistan, and Bangladesh was officially born as a new nation. With a nudge from U.S. Ambassador Farland, President Yahya accepted the surrender. Let's look at a timeline of events for the Bangladesh Liberation War. March 25, 1971, the Pakistani army launched Operation Searchlight, a brutal crackdown on the Bengali population in East Pakistan, who were demanding autonomy or independence from West Pakistan. March 26, 1971, the Bengali leader Sheikh Mujibur Rahman declared the independence of Bangladesh and formed a provisional government with the support of the Mukti Bahini, a guerrilla force of freedom fighters. April 6, 1971, the U.S. diplomat Archer Blood sent a cable to Washington, denouncing the Pakistani atrocities and the U.S. failure to condemn them. He was later recalled and replaced by a more pro-Pakistan envoy. November 21, 1971, India launched a massive airlift of humanitarian aid to the refugees in East Pakistan who had fled to India or other parts of the world. The operation was codenamed Operation Flood. December 3, 1971, Pakistan launched a preemptive strike on Indian airfields, hoping to neutralize India's air superiority. India responded by launching air, naval, and ground offensives on both the eastern and western fronts. December 4, 1971, U.S. President Richard Nixon and his National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger decided to send a naval task force, led by the USS Enterprise, to the Bay of Bengal to intimidate India and support Pakistan. December 6, 1971, India formally recognized Bangladesh as a sovereign and independent state and was followed by many other countries. Pakistan severed its diplomatic ties with India in protest. December 14, 1971, the Pakistani army and its local collaborators, such as the Razakars, al-Badr, and al-Shams, carried out a massacre of intellectuals, professionals, and cultural activists in Dhaka in an attempt to eliminate the future leaders of Bangladesh. December 16, 1971, the Pakistani army surrendered in Dhaka, the capital of East Pakistan, to the Indian Army and the Mukti Bahini, ending the war in the east. About 90,000 Pakistani soldiers were taken as prisoners of war by India. December 17, 1971, India declared a unilateral ceasefire on the Western Front after repulsing Pakistan's attacks and capturing some of its territory. Pakistan accepted the ceasefire the next day. December 18, 1971, Nixon and Kissinger congratulated each other for saving West Pakistan, despite their diplomatic humiliation and moral bankruptcy. They ignored the genocide and the human rights violations committed by Pakistan and its allies in East Pakistan. July 2, 1972, India and Pakistan signed the Simla Agreement, laying the foundation for the normalization of relations. India released the Pakistani prisoners of war and returned the captured territory in the West in exchange for Pakistan's recognition of Bangladesh. The Bangladesh genocide was a tragedy of immense proportions, as it claimed the lives of an estimated 300,000 to 3 million people, mostly Bengali Hindus, and displaced about 10 million people who fled to India or other parts of the world. It also exposed the hypocrisy and cynicism of Cold War politics, as the US and China sided with a brutal dictatorship against a popular and democratic movement, while India and the Soviet Union intervened to uphold the principles of self-determination and human rights. The genocide also had a lasting impact on the politics and society of Bangladesh, as it shaped its national identity, culture, and memory. The genocide also sparked a demand for justice and accountability, as many of the perpetrators and collaborators escaped punishment and continued to wield influence in the country. The quest for justice and reconciliation remains a challenge and a priority for Bangladesh and its people. We hope you found this video informative and educational. If you enjoyed this video, please comment, like, and subscribe to our channel for more content. Thank you for watching.